Hey, what's up, audience? Oh, today I seem a little bit more fuzzy than usual, but I'm sure you're gonna like it. I got a good one for you today, okay? Pretty straightforward, clarifies everything very well, and I wanna get to the gist of it. And the more and more, I forget about the more and more. But what I'm trying to say is that there are useless arguments that are going on between people, and it's only because instead of looking deeper to their own conscience and seeing how it all works, they're arguing about this. No, it's this. No, it's this. No, that you can't get the clarity through argument. That's one thing is for sure. You cannot get the clarity through argument. And so, one particular argument that may be going on is this confusion about um, are we the same? Are we different? Um, is everyone like equal or what the fuck is going on? Okay. So, in a previous video, said that we all share uh, two things: void or divine spark. We all share that. We're all made out of that. However, after that, once you get into the duality and immediately gets into the Trinity, in that moment, when the game is booted, you're no longer the same as anybody else. You, by definition, you are unique, and by definition, are you can never cannot be the same. If you try to be the same, you see what happens when with the movements like communism when they try to put everybody as the same, okay, as just like soulless robot. That's what happens when you try to make everybody the same. We are unique, so how can we be the same? So we're not the same, okay? Now, another question: whether there is some sort of hierarchy, whether somebody is, more evolved than someone else. And the answer to this is absolutely yes. There is a maturity of the soul. And this is what I want to get into today. I don't have a lot of battery, but I'm sure I'm going to drill back all the way to the point. Okay? To, to basically prove those statements that I've made, that we all share the same source energy, I call it void, divine spark, or another word for it, I sometimes use confidence or innocence. Innocence and confidence are two yin and yang primordial energies out of which you can make anything. This is why the entire game is about uh, figuring out of how to have the endless stream of those two energies. That's the game. So we're battling for those two energies and weaving them together. And after weaving them together, there's something that we can create, and that's whatever we want. Okay, completion of our desires. So, and another statement that I've made was that there is a evolution of the soul, that there is our absolutely more mature soul and young soul. There's absolutely that case, and I want to make, and it's not just straightforward, um, just like that. There is the dark side and the light side. If you went to the dark side, that's like a minus level, right? So you can be between somewhere, -1 to -10. You can be way into the darkness. If you are there, your path is to go back to zero and then level up from there. So you can see this would be devolved soul, and somewhere on this scale would be evolved soul, and you can be somewhere like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 10, right? I'm just giving an example. I'm using these numbers, okay? Um, as an example. But and you can, this is totally, this one is measurable and this one is measurable too. And now I'm going to get into of proving that that's the case. Okay. Well, as much as I can prove through me talking and you observing. All right. The first thing, we have this reality. This reality, sometimes people call it veil. What it does, it splits the energy of yin and yang. It splits them apart, and that creates the challenge of how to reunite them. That's the essence of this game. Now, it doesn't just split, it has a running program, and we call it time space. And every day has its own time fractals, its own climate, its own energy, and it's creating those mixtures of those uh, energies. So just by being here incarnated, without nobody's fault, every day you're going to be exposed to some degree of pain or pressure, some degree of masculine emotion, pain, some degree of feminine emotion, pressure. Okay, you're going to be exposed to it. Everybody's subjected to this. After that, what you can choose to alchemize the emotion and let the emotion flower before taking kind of any action or deriving plans and whatever. You can let the emotion flower, and as it's flowering, it can flower into spirit. And once you connect the spirit, that's what you wanted. That's what actually was, you saw something negative happened. Actually, that's something that negative that happened was already pre-coded and pre-planned. And so the emotion actually happened first, but I don't want to get into the nooks and crannies of this. The fact is that the veil stimulated you with those two energies that are more towards pain, towards pressure. And now, how are you going to deal with this? If you let them flower, they're going to flower into spirit. And that spirit is the state of consciousness which you actually wanted, which somebody was trying to, or not somebody, but I should say like that veil was testing you on it and making you feel negative about it. But through the alchemy, you alchemize those emotions and you go to the spirit and you get to the state that you want, regardless of the event that's happening. And now that you have that spirit is going to go to work and create the opposite of what you saw. And so this is why you can, if you live life this way, you will only experience something that's bad once. After that, the emotion comes in, you let it flower, and that spirit is going to create something that you do want. By observing something that you don't want once and letting the emotions flower into the spirit, letting the spirit create what you want, you get from something that you don't want, something that you do want. And that's the way to play the game of life. Now, you can also choose to go the other way. You can also choose not to face those emotions. You can choose to suppress those emotions and create the coping mechanisms, what we call beliefs. Okay? Um, when you let the emotions flower, you do not create beliefs. You do not create beliefs. You do not condition your heart, your consciousness. You do not create any beliefs. You end up creating a spirit, which is truth, and it's making decisions that are not static. It's based on a situation, but they're perfect. The spirit does everything for you. Okay, but instead of gaining that spirit, you may be gaining something that is a belief, a condition, something that is rigid and unchanging as a coping mechanism. So now we're getting into something interesting. I mentioned pain type of emotions and pressure type of emotions, the masculine emotions. There are 7 of them, and the degrees of the 7 masculine emotions, and then 7 feminine emotions. Okay? Now, if you do not alchemize those, what happens is that you have to create a coping mechanism to cope with that emotion. Let's say you don't want to have the same experience again, so instead of transmuting and letting that emotion to be alchemized, you got to pack it somewhere, and you have to create a belief around it, so you don't have to feel it anymore. And then you're gonna find the ways of how not to feel that, how to put on other people or whatever. But you're not gonna feel it, but you're going to figure out the way of how to now steal the energy, because you're not connected to the source of the spirit. You got to steal the energy. And as a man, as you create the these beliefs to cope with the masculine emotions, you becoming a tyrant or fear mongering. You're right. It's that energy, this fear it's a structure. Actually, it's the structure that fear mongering. It feeds on innocence. The innocent energy comes in, it takes that energy, makes it into the fear energy, fear mongers somebody, another person submits, they have dominance, so they don't have to deal with their emotions, because now they're dominating somebody else and they're sucking the innocence out of them. So now they are using somebody else as a source of energy in order for them to not to face their own shit, where their source of energy actually is, right? So now this is the masculine structure. I call it like a coal, right? The feminine structure happens when you try to manage these feminine emotions. And in the feminine way, the way you do it, you create those beliefs, and through manipulation and cunning. So that creates a lie energy. And that takes the confidence energy, breaks it into the jagged energy, and shoots out the lie energy. And so that's a deceit, right? It's the feminine cunning energy. It's lying. It's trying to, if a woman doesn't like somebody that you're with, she's gonna try to find the fucking way of how to separate you two. You say like, and she's gonna say like, oh, did you hear what you said about you? Whatever. You see what I'm trying to say? Everybody knows that type of energy. Okay. Now that woman, that particular person chose go towards the dark side. She did not face her emotions, and so she had to develop coping mechanisms. And that coping mechanism is ego. The spirit, as I mentioned before, to go the spirit way, that's the soul. You grow your diamond, or your white mirror, as I call it. Black mirror, white mirror, coal, diamond, dark side, light side. Now, the light side is a direct antidote to the dark side. It's not like it's competing for it. No, it's being developed as direct antidote to the dark side. If there's no dark side, you don't need the light side, because then everybody is sharing the confidence and innocence energy and happy ever after, because you don't have to compete for it. But because we are in this reality that splits those two energies, and we have to find a way to reconcile it, the darkness happens and the lightness needs to happen in a direct response to the darkness. Because darkness happens, then you do need to develop the lightness. So now we have two primordial energies, confidence, innocence, and then four structures: masculine malice, feminine malice, masculine goodness, feminine goodness. Masculine goodness, like that diamond structure, is something that takes the fear energy and diffracts it back into power energy or wisdom energy, which is like an antidote. And so the more the fear mongering happens, the more power the light side actually receives. And this is why, as soon as there's this one entity that has that type of capacity to transmute the fear mongering energy, basically every time that fear mongering energy, it fucks them over and over again. They basically destroy themselves. The ego starts destroying itself because it doubles down on the fear mongering. But the more fear it creates, the more power it's being transmuted. So they basically fueling the light, that crystal, with energy, and becomes more and more powerful. And so now they have no tools because the fear-mongering was their tool. And so now the fear-mongering just makes the the hero more and more powerful. So that's just where they got, fucked over. And now they have to be, the ego is shrinking, the masculine malice is shrinking, getting destroyed, going through all this nonsense, and going back to zero, and then starting over again in the right way. Okay, they don't go back there voluntarily. You need to have an entity of power to bring them back to zero. The same thing with the cunning feminine. They do not go back to the center voluntarily. You do need the entity of compassion and love to bring it back to zero. Okay, so it's a type of spiritual spanking that happens. Okay, so as you can see, there are two types of energies, 4 structures. What else I can say about those 4 structures? Well, except that transmuted fear feels like bliss, which is power. Why is it power? Because with bliss you can create anything you want. And then that diffracted lying energy, diffracted energy lying, goes into the white mirror, which is the compassion, that feminine heroine energy, the hero energy, and the heroine. The hero energy is the transmuting fear into power, the feminine energy transmuting lie into love, I suppose. Okay, deceit into, it would make sense that it's well, you know why the spells do not work, and actually the witch is the woman that is actually using the cunning and secret ways of getting her way, and she may be using all sorts of spells and whatever. Spells do not work in silence, and the compassion is the energy of peace and silence, and this is why all these spells just don't work anymore. Okay, so deceits and lies crumble, and obviously nobody is using threats and fear mongering, because all that energy now is being produced into power. So it becomes futile for the dark side to fight against the light side. And this is the true reality. It's difficult to get that diamond. It's difficult to get that mirror. But once you get it, the other side is fucked, because that thing is not in a fighting with the other side. It is a direct antidote. It is basically turns fear into power and turns lie into love. So and that's the difference between the black mirror and the white mirror, and the coal and the diamond. Okay, so now this light side, now if you grow into compassion and power or wisdom or love, there's many words, but I'm trying to describe that there are these structures that are totally real, and that all it's happening at the emotional and energy level. And it's basic, it's not complex, it's very simple to understand. Okay, you can feel, if you are into alchemy and somebody comes into, whether you, for example, by yourself and this fear energy comes along and you alchemize everything into bliss, or by yourself in this like pressure or blocked energy coming in, you alchemize everything into peace. Or if somebody is in front of you, like a person, and shoots a lot of that fear energy, take all of it and transmute everything into bliss. And the more you do that, the easier it gets. And not that the fear disappears, it's just that it becomes almost automatically transmuted into bliss. Not that lies disappear, it's just they get automatically silenced, and so they don't work anymore. People don't believe the bullshit, they don't believe the lies. Okay, and that is a spiritual warfare, and that's all you need to know in this game. And as you can see, there is a you know, a soul maybe somewhere, you know, and I'm also somewhere on that development. You know, I'm uh, on, you know, on this um, evolution. There's absolutely is evolution, um, and there is a soul maturity. Some souls are more mature, some souls are less mature, and you can argue that the dark souls are, well, it's actually ego. They're not souls. Soul only starts happening at the 0 point and above. That is still ego. That you can say that these souls are sleeping and playing a villain, right? But they're not then they cannot control it. That's like non-player characters. All evil is automatic. But